Yeah, it's time now to have a rummage around the archives of the British Film Institute.
And we sent Gyles Brandreth to see what gems he could uncover.
I'm in one of the hardest places to get into in the UK. No, not the vaults of the Bank of England. I'm in the archives of the British Film Institute. Established in 1935, the BFI's National Archive collection holds nearly 1 million films and TV shows. But as I search the archives, I discover I'm not alone. It seems a globe-trotting comedy legend's here as well.
Gyles Brandreth, as I live and breathe, what are you doing here in the archive? You're far too young.
Well, you're right about that. What are you doing here? Michael's here because he's taking part in the opening night of the television festival hosted by the BFI and Radio Times. So I've decided to take a walk with him around the archive in 80 seconds. When you were doing stuff in the 60s, did you think one day, 50 years later, it would be here, when it would like this?
No, I didn't sort of think about it that way. At the time, you just did it and it just disappeared. That was the way television was then. Film was prestigious and all that, whereas television was just something here one day, gone the next. And now we live in an age where everything, almost everything, can be discovered somewhere. Here we are, Gyles Brandreth, Never Again. Gyles Brandreth, Why?
The BFI is always searching for missing television shows to complete its archive, and they've a few shows featuring Mr. Palin that he won't have seen in decades.
I can see the stage is ready, the starter's in position, so here with Aladdin is the Cod Ewing Player's attempt on the World All-Comers Pantomime Land Speed Record.
The BFI's archive houses more than just TV shows and films. It also has rare documents and stills, some of which Michael has never seen before.
We have some photographs, first of all, relating to the meaning of life.
This was the fish shoot, and it was actually the last day that the Pythons ever appeared on film together.
On to the next. Oh.
So this is the life of Brian.
That's George Harrison. He came along and did film a couple of scenes, and he had to say good evening at one point, and it was a bit indistinct, so I had to post-sync George Harrison.
Did you?
I'd say good evening.
You're good.
Well, I've worked on that.
So let's see what rarities they brought up from the vaults for us to watch.
That's a bit nerve-wracking, really.
All your yesterdays. First up, it's an excerpt from The Complete and Utter History of Britain. This episode was thought lost for decades.
I actually haven't seen this one. It was written by Terry Jones and myself, and just before Monty Python.
Oh.
Good evening, sir. My name's Augustine.
A nice idea. It's a bit like Horrible Histories now. Watching that, you can see where the Python obsession with history came from.
Well, that's, jolly nice.
And John Cleese saw this and gave me a call. And he said, you won't be doing any more of those, will you? And so Python was born.
Next, back in the late 60s, it's the Christmas special of Do Not Adjust Your Set.
This is one of the first Terry Gilliam animations. You know, as soon as we saw it, we realised this is a totally new ingredient for a comedy show of any kind. It's still one of my favourites. The anarchy of Christmas cards.
And now for something completely different. A BBC drama from 1987, East of Ipswich, written by Michael and loosely based on his early years.
It was a drama based on our family holidays in Suffolk. It's perfectly captured. It was rather cathartic, actually, after so many years. It was a holiday romance, which actually happened to me in 1959. I'm still with the girl.
Honestly, the people who can afford rovers these days.
Do you like watching the past?
The further you are away from it, it becomes less sort of stressful watching it. You look back and it's part of your work, and some things are good, some things are bad.
Well, I think you could look back with some pride.
Well, thank you.
Lovely film, that.
Yeah,
absolutely
lovely.
wonderful. Well, a big thank you to Gyles and to Michael. The BFI and Radio Times Television Festival takes place from the 7th to the 9th of April at BFI.